There is this running joke in the fitness industry, right? Like, if you want an empty gym, you really just have to wait until the 3rd week of January.
Oh, yeah. Right around January 17th, like clockwork.
Exactly. Everyone comes in on January 1st with these, massive life-altering resolutions. They buy the gear, they set the alarms, and they just sprint out of the gates.
And then the whole thing completely collapses.
Right. But, this doesn't just happen with fitness. It happens to anyone trying to navigate the ultimate modern dilemma, which is the mission for today's deep dive, by the way.
Yeah, we're talking about the struggle to balance a full-time job with, well, actually having a life.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're working full-time, but you also desperately want to continuously learn and upskill to advance your career. And, you should exercise, you need to get enough sleep, and ideally...
Ideally, you'd still have the energy to look your family in the eye at the end of the day.
Exactly. Which feels impossible for most people listening right now. Are you just stuck on this hamster wheel of feeling constantly busy, but making zero progress on the things you actually care about?
It really is the defining struggle for professionals right now. We have these grand ambitions to optimize every quadrant of our lives.
But we are operating within the strict mathematical limit of a 24-hour day.
Right. And when people hit that wall, their default response is usually to blame their own character. They assume they just, didn't want the goal badly enough, or they lack discipline.
So they try to push harder, grit their teeth, and just end up burning out entirely.
Exactly. And that burnout cycle is what we are dismantling today. We are pulling insights from a framework developed by Justin Sung.
Yeah, he spent over a decade coaching professionals on how to learn efficiently and upskill without completely sacrificing their sanity.
And his core argument is a total paradigm shift. Basically, we have to completely stop relying on willpower.
Stop relying on it entirely.
Yes. Instead, we need to transition to something he calls thinking in systems. It completely reframes the narrative around personal failure.
So if you aren't achieving your upskilling goals, his framework argues it isn't a moral failing at all.
Not at all. It is simply an engineering problem. You are using the wrong tool for the job.
Because willpower is biologically finite, right?
Exactly. It's tied to your cognitive load, your blood glucose levels, your emotional regulation. Every time you make a decision at your day job or, suppress frustration in traffic, you are draining that reservoir.
So expecting it to be full when you sit down to study complex material at 8 o'clock at night?
It's just ignoring basic human physiology.
Right. And the analogy that jumps out from the source material here, I love this. It's that trying to achieve massive goals with pure willpower is like trying to hold your breath underwater to find sunken treasure.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. You can dive down and you can swim incredibly hard for a minute or two, but eventually your lungs are going to burn.
The carbon dioxide builds up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Your brain triggers a panic response, and you have to come rushing back up to the surface completely empty-handed.
You can't just look in the mirror and tell yourself to hold your breath better next time.
Right. That is fighting biology.
And that visual captures the mechanism perfectly. Because a system, on the other hand, operates entirely differently.
If willpower is the air in your lungs, a system is like a set of scuba gear.
Yes. It is an external mechanism designed to continuously supply you with what you need to stay submerged, so you can do the actual work, regardless of how exhausted your internal resources are.
The system does the heavy lifting so you don't have to. So today, we are building you a set of scuba gear.
I love that. And if we're going to build this frictionless system to help you balance work and upskilling, we really have to look at the foundational materials first.
Which means looking backward, according to the research.
Right. You can't build a new process until you deeply investigate exactly why your past attempts failed. Why did holding your breath fail, usually around day 3?
We have to move away from operating on intentions and tasks.
Exactly. An intention is a statement like, I need to learn Python to get that promotion.
Or a task-based plan is saying, I will code for 1 hour after work.
Right. And both of those rely entirely on your future self having the emotional motivation and physical energy to execute it in that exact moment.
Which we just established is a terrible bet.
Right. A system is a specific chain of processes designed to automatically pull you toward the result. It neutralizes the need for motivation altogether.
Okay, so how do we build that?
Well, you have to adopt what Sung calls holistic thinking. The first principle is that you must proactively expect your new plan to fail.
Okay, let's unpack this. Expecting our plans to fail sounds incredibly pessimistic.
It does sound that way at first, yeah.
Right. I mean, if I am trying to hype myself up to tackle a difficult certification on top of a 40-hour work week, isn't going into it with the assumption of failure just setting yourself up for defeat from day one? It feels like starting a marathon by visualizing yourself twisting your ankle.
What's fascinating here is that it's not pessimism at all. It is proactive realism that protects your goals from your own human fatigue.
Proactive realism. Okay.
Yeah, relying on pure optimism. The fantasy that you will always be motivated, well-rested, distraction-free, that just leaves your goals entirely vulnerable to basic, predictable human friction.
So auditing your past failures isn't about wallowing in defeat?
No, not at all. When you sit down and create a master list of your personal barriers, you're actively identifying the vulnerabilities in your environment.
You're acknowledging that you are a human being who gets tired, who gets stuck in traffic.
Right. And who occasionally just wants to zone out on the couch.
Yeah, I feel seen right now. So rather than pretending those vulnerabilities don't exist, you map them out.
Exactly.
If I look back at my own failed attempts to study in the evenings, the trigger wasn't necessarily the subject matter. It was like walking through the front door, smelling dinner, sitting down for 5 minutes to decompress.
And then realizing the momentum was completely
gone.
Which is incredibly common. The environmental cues of your home are deeply wired to trigger relaxation, not intense cognitive focus.
Right. So when you do this audit, you aren't looking at the failed action itself. You aren't just saying, I didn't study.
Exactly. You are looking at the specific obstacle that derailed you. And more importantly, how you responded to that obstacle.
Did you negotiate with it or did you just surrender?
Right, because once you have that personalized master list of failure points, your new system must explicitly account for every single one of them.
That actually makes the next phase of the framework logically clear. Because if auditing our past proves that we are inevitably going to be tired and distracted,
that we can't design a daily routine for our best, most energetic self anymore.
We have to engineer a routine that our absolute worst, most exhausted self can still execute.
That is the second principle.
Yeah.
Building for repeatability.
Building for repeatability.
Yeah. The system you design cannot rely on the stars aligning. It has to be frictionless enough to work on your absolute worst day.
So if your plan requires you to actively inject a sudden surge of willpower just to get started, it violates this principle.
It is a fundamentally flawed plan. The source material highlights an excellent case study of an accountant to illustrate this.
Oh yeah, studying for those massive certification exams.
Right. This professional was working full-time while trying to study for their chartered accountancy exams,
which are notoriously dense, mathematically complex,
and require hundreds of hours of preparation, yes.
What a brutal combination for cognitive load. Right. Doing high-level financial work all day, only to transition into high-level financial studying at night.
It really is. And the accountant's initial strategy was what most of us do. Go to the office, drive home, eat dinner, and then try to study for 2 hours.
And let me guess, it failed constantly.
Constantly. The audit revealed a chain reaction of friction. The commute home involved heavy traffic, which caused mental fatigue.
Then arriving home introduced family obligations and the distraction of dinner prep.
Exactly. By the time they cleared their desk to study at 8:30 p.m., their cognitive resources were completely drained.
They had no willpower left to override the brain's natural desire to sleep.
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because most people's solution to this accountant's problem is what I call the Rocky Balboa method.
Oh, I like that. The Rocky method.
Yeah, just dig deep. Drink a gallon of coffee, put on a heavy metal playlist, slap yourself in the face, and muscle through the exhaustion.
Right, we glorify that kind of endless hustle culture.
We do. But the source makes it clear that just trying harder is completely unsustainable and a miserable way to live.
It really is. Because the biological reality makes it clear that muscling through is a recipe for long-term disaster.
You're just burning out your adrenal system.
And ensuring your cognitive retention of the material will be terrible anyway. You might manage it for a week, but eventually the body wins.
The willpower depletes, the habit breaks, and now you are left feeling guilty on top of being physically exhausted.
Exactly. So since we know the Rocky Balboa method doesn't work, we have to fix the broken plan through an iterative problem-solving cycle.
So we take that list of obstacles and actively negotiate with them.
Yes, to find a frictionless, low willpower solution. You bounce back and forth between finding a low-effort solution and anticipating the new reasons it might fail.
Okay, so if the evening routine is a dead end because of home-based fatigue, the logical move is to change the environment.
That's option A. You could bypass the commute and the dinner crash entirely by just staying at the office after everyone leaves.
Right, utilizing that environment for an extra hour of study before transitioning into home mode.
Exactly. It utilizes the environment to reduce friction, requiring less willpower to start studying. But in this iterative cycle, the moment you propose a solution, you must immediately anticipate the new reason it might fail.
So staying at the office late introduces a significant new obstacle.
Right. You are now missing family dinner and sacrificing crucial time with your loved ones.
Which, for most people, defeats the purpose of trying to build a better life in the first place.
So you have to negotiate that new obstacle.
You could sit down with your family and ask if dinner could be pushed back by an hour for the next few months while you prep for the exam.
Right. And if the family is supportive and agrees, you have successfully negotiated the obstacle and stabilized the system.
But let's assume that doesn't work. The family schedule is rigid. Option A is out.
Then you iterate again. You move to option B. If the evening is compromised, the only remaining window for deep, uninterrupted focus is early morning.
Right before the rest of the house wakes up.
Exactly.
But waking up at 5 a.m. introduces a massive new physiological obstacle. If you are still going to bed at 11:30 p.m., you are instantly sleep deprived.
Which destroys your ability to learn the material anyway.
Right, so the only way to make the morning study session work is to drastically overhaul your nighttime routine to ensure you are asleep by 9:30 p.m.
Yes. You've isolated the core friction. You are constantly cycling through variables time, environment, routine until you lock in a sequence that works.
But this brings up a crucial reality check about this framework.
It does. People often assume that finding a frictionless system means the process will be easy and universally comfortable.
Right. Changing a deeply ingrained nighttime routine, winding down when the sun is barely setting, waking up in the dark, that is inherently uncomfortable.
It requires discipline.
So what does this all mean? If both solutions, pushing back family dinner or changing your whole sleep routine, feel uncomfortable, aren't we just trading one pain for another?
That's a great question.
Why bother making the change at all if it's going to be miserable?
It is a vital distinction to make. Building the system initially takes effort, but executing the established system requires very little.
Getting a completely different result in your life absolutely requires doing things differently.
Right. The discomfort of habit change is unavoidable. But we have to reframe how we view that discomfort.
Okay, how so?
It's not a choice between uncomfortable and comfortable, because staying stagnant isn't actually comfortable.
Oh, wow. That's true.
You are choosing between two very different types of pain. On one side, you have the temporary, productive discomfort of making a proactive change.
Like your body adjusting to the new sleep schedule in a matter of weeks.
Exactly. On the other side, you have the permanent, suffocating discomfort of chronic stress, anxiety, and the disappointment of never making progress on your goals.
Wow. That puts the struggle into stark perspective.
It really does. Enduring 3 weeks of groggy mornings to build a permanent Scuba Gear system is infinitely better than spending the next decade drowning in unfulfilled potential.
So let's say the listener makes that trade. They negotiate their obstacles, endure the temporary friction of changing their routine, and they successfully carve out a morning study habit.
And it survives their worst days. The system is functional.
But the framework suggests the job still isn't done at this stage.
It isn't, no, because early versions of any system are inherently fragile.
They are often held together with the equivalent of duct tape and string.
Yes, which brings us to the final principle, peeling the Band-Aids.
Peeling the Band-Aids.
When you first design a system to bypass your weaknesses, you inevitably use temporary crutches to force it to work.
Like relying on a massive thermos of coffee to survive that 5:00 a.m. study session.
Or using a strict 20-minute focus timer just to keep your eyes on the screen.
Right, so those are the Band-Aids. They are functional, but they aren't fixing the root cause.
They're treating the symptoms rather than the disease. While these tools are fantastic for short-term triage, if you rely on them permanently, they overbloat the system.
Because what happens if you are in a situation where you don't have coffee or don't have a timer?
The system fails. The underlying reason you need the heavy caffeine isn't a lack of coffee. It is likely that your baseline sleep quality is fundamentally poor.
Even if you are in bed earlier.
Exactly. And the reason you desperately need the timer isn't a lack of discipline, it is that your baseline attention span has been severely eroded.
By constant digital distraction.
It's exactly like using a bucket to catch a leak in your living room.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Thanks. I mean, the bucket is a great Band-Aid, right?
Yeah.
It stops your hardwood floors from getting ruined today, so you need to use it.
Yes.
But if you just leave the bucket there indefinitely, you are choosing to live in a house with a compromised roof. You are constantly monitoring the bucket, emptying it.
Making sure it doesn't overflow.
Exactly. Eventually, you have to climb up onto the roof, replace the damaged shingles, and fix the actual hole so you can finally throw the bucket away.
That is a perfect parallel. Because if you keep the bucket, if you keep the Band-Aids, your system remains fragile. It requires too many specific conditions to succeed.
Right. So transitioning to a permanent, robust system means identifying those underlying deficits.
The lack of deep restorative sleep, the fractured attention span, yes.
And turning the repair of those deficits into your new primary objective.
Exactly. You make retraining those core habits your new goal, plugging them back into the step one system loop. So you set it as the new intention, audit why you usually fail to sleep well, build a new repeatability protocol for your evening wind down, and iterate.
You are constantly upgrading the hardware of the machine from the inside out. The system becomes dynamic, it evolves alongside you.
By continuously peeling away the external crutches and strengthening your internal baseline, the system requires fewer and fewer conditions to operate.
It becomes a fluid, natural part of your daily existence, rather than a rigid set of rules you are forcing yourself to follow.
That fundamentally changes how we view personal development.
It really does.
We have been conditioned to view achieving complex goals as this Herculean feat of sheer willpower and emotional intensity.
But what this framework reveals is that consistency is much closer to an engineering problem. You don't need to be a stronger person, you just need to design a better environment.
It's so empowering. If we synthesize the core mechanics here, thinking in systems actually demands the exact same amount of effort or even less than failing repeatedly.
Think about the massive emotional and physical toll of the traditional cycle. Hyping yourself up, pushing incredibly hard for 3 days.
Inevitably failing, drowning in guilt.
And then trying to generate the motivation to start all over again. That cyclical failure is far more exhausting than simply doing the upfront work to negotiate with your obstacles.
Right. By auditing your past failures, building for your worst days, iterating through obstacles, and eventually peeling away the Band-Aids, you can finally reclaim your time and freedom.
You're building a sustainable architecture for your life.
So, to you listening right now, balancing the weight of your career and your ambitions, you do not lack motivation or willpower.
You simply lack a system.
You have been trying to explore the ocean floor by holding your breath, and you have been blaming your lungs every time you have to surface. Your immediate next step is incredibly straightforward. Pick just one upskilling goal today.
It could be learning that new software platform, tackling the first chapter of a certification, or finally reading that dense industry book.
Write it down. But more importantly, write down exactly how and why it failed the last time you tried it. Conduct the audit.
And be relentlessly honest during that audit. Did you try to force the habit when your cognitive battery was already at 0?
Did the plan require you to ignore your need for social connection or rest?
Pinpoint those exact friction points, because those vulnerabilities are the precise blueprints for where your new system needs to be built.
Absolutely. And as you start sketching out that new frictionless process, we want to leave you with one final lingering question to ponder. If it is true that our daily automatic systems dictate our success rather than our grand intentions, take a really hard, objective look at your current daily routine. Look at the actions you take automatically without thinking, day in and day out. Regardless of what you tell yourself you want to achieve, what goal is your current system actually perfectly designed to produce? Because right now you are already wearing a set of Scuba Gear. The only question is, where is it currently taking you?